A little bit on everybody, especially the guys that don't have them.
What's up, GQ? This is
Under the blinding lights of the Super Bowl, as confetti rains from the sky and millions watch in awe, one man stands at the center of it all. Calm, composed, and unshakably focused. Patrick Mahomes. To the world, he's the golden boy of American football. The magician with an arm that defies physics. The prodigy who rewrote the game before turning 30. But behind the smile and the swagger lies something far deeper. A relentless hunger to prove that greatness isn't inherited. It's earned. From the small-town fields of Texas to the roaring stadiums of the NFL, Mahomes' story isn't just about touchdowns and trophies. It's about legacy, about carrying a father's name, defying doubters, and standing tall under pressure that could crush most men. He's faced injuries, heartbreak, and the weight of expectation. Yet somehow, he rises again and again. This is not just the story of a quarterback. It's the story of a man who turned pressure into power and became the face of a new era in American sports. To understand his magic, we have to go back to where it all began. Long before the stadium lights and roaring crowds, Patrick Mahomes grew up beneath the vast skies of Tyler, Texas, a town where dreams were as big as the Friday night football fields. Born in 1995, he was the son of a professional athlete and a school teacher. Two worlds that rarely met, yet somehow shaped the perfect balance inside him. His father, Pat Mahomes Sr., was a Major League Baseball pitcher, a man who lived the rhythm of locker rooms, long road trips, and the discipline of professional sports. From him, young Patrick learned resilience, how to stay calm when the crowd turned hostile, and how to smile when failure tried to define you. His mother, Randy, grounded that competitive fire with warmth and purpose. She taught him that faith mattered more than fame, that hard work meant more than headlines. She protected him from the noise, reminding him that before he was a prodigy, he was still her son, a boy who loved backyard games and laughter more than anything else. In a house where baseball bats leaned beside homework books, Mahomes absorbed both grit and grace. He wasn't the loudest kid in class, but his eyes carried a spark, the kind that hinted at something extraordinary waiting to break free. And when the afternoons faded into golden Texas sunsets, he'd throw footballs across the yard, experimenting, learning, creating his own language of motion. It wasn't just play, it was destiny forming in slow motion. No one knew it then, but those small-town evenings, filled with dust, laughter, and endless dreams, were forging the foundation of a legend. The kind of legend who would someday redefine what greatness looks like. At White House High School, Texas, Patrick Mahomes wasn't just another kid on the field. He was a storm brewing in silence. He played baseball, basketball, and football with the same fire that once lived in his father's eyes. But it was football that made him feel alive. The sound of the ball slicing through the air, the rhythm of the crowd. It was more than a sport, it was a calling, yet the path wasn't easy. Scouts and critics whispered that his style was too wild, too unconventional, too risky. Mahomes threw sidearm passes, improvised on the fly, and turned broken plays into miracles. To some, he was reckless. To others, revolutionary. But to Patrick, he was just being himself, a kid who saw possibilities others couldn't. When college offers came, he chose Texas Tech University. Not the powerhouse school, but the one that believed in his fire. There, he found his first true stage. Under the crimson lights of Lubbock, he unleashed the kind of performances that turned doubters into believers. Records shattered. Crowds rose. Commentators ran out of adjectives. But behind the numbers was a deeper story. A young man still finding balance between genius and control, between instinct and discipline, between proving himself and becoming himself. Then came the game that changed everything. An unforgettable shootout against Oklahoma, where Mahomes threw for over 700 yards. The world saw it. The NFL saw it. Suddenly, the boy from Texas wasn't just a local hero, he was a national phenomenon. That night didn't just put Patrick Mahomes on the map. It signaled the arrival of a new kind of quarterback, one who didn't play by the book because he was writing his own. In 2017, Patrick Mahomes walked across the NFL draft stage with a quiet smile that hid the storm inside him. He wasn't the most hyped prospect. He wasn't the safe pick. But when the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to take him at number 10 overall, the football world felt a shift, as if destiny had just whispered in the ear of a franchise. Mahomes arrived in Kansas City not as a savior, but as a student. He sat behind veteran quarterback Alex Smith, studying, waiting, absorbing every detail like a scientist of the game. For an entire season he watched from the sidelines, a fire contained but never extinguished. And when his moment finally came, he erupted. The 2018 season wasn't just a breakout, it was a revolution. Mahomes unleashed a style of football the world had never seen. No-look passes, impossible angles, improvisation that bordered on artistry. He made the impossible feel routine. 50 touchdown passes, league MVP, highlight reels that played like magic tricks. Suddenly, the name Mahomes became a synonym for hope, excitement, and wonder. He wasn't just winning games. He was rewriting the language of the sport. Kansas City had found its heartbeat. America had found its hero. Then came the Super Bowl Live, his ultimate test. Down double digits, late in the game with millions watching, Mahomes refused to break. He led a comeback so improbable it felt scripted by fate. A performance that etched his name into history. When the final whistle blew and confetti fell like a blizzard of gold, Patrick Mahomes was no longer the future. He was the present. But fame has a way of testing those who rise too fast. Because for every cheer that lifted him up, a shadow of expectation began to follow. And as the lights grew brighter, Mahomes would soon discover, staying on top is far harder than getting there. Fame, they say, is a double-edged sword. For Patrick Mahomes, it cut deepest after the cheers faded. The 2021 season began with promise. Another championship run. Another chance to cement his legacy. But something felt off. The timing, the rhythm, the confidence that once made him unstoppable began to waver. Passes sailed high. Defenses adjusted. Every mistake was magnified under the blinding light of expectation. For the first time in his career, Mahomes looked human. Sports analysts questioned if the league had figured him out. Social media turned ruthless. Memes replaced praise, and headlines asked if his best days had already passed. Off the field, the noise grew louder. His family became constant tabloid targets. His fiancée Brittany criticized online. His brother Jackson mocked for viral antics. Every move the Mahomes family made became content. Every gesture dissected. The golden boy of the NFL was suddenly surrounded by controversy he didn't create, yet couldn't escape. Behind the polished interviews and calm smiles, Mahomes was fighting something deeper. The weight of perfection. The injuries, the exhaustion, the feeling of being trapped in his own success. In the silence after games, when the stadium emptied, he often sat alone, replaying not just missed throws, but missed peace. The world that once crowned him now demanded more, and as the noise grew deafening, Mahomes had to make a choice. Crack under the pressure, or redefine what greatness really meant. Because true legends aren't made in victory. They're forged in the moments when everything starts to fall apart. Every champion faces a crossroads, the moment when talent alone is no longer enough. For Patrick Mahomes, that moment came not with a roar, but with silence, the quiet realization that he had to evolve, or fade. So he went back to the basics, back to the film room, back to the training field, back to the hunger that had carried him from Texas sandlots to Super Bowl glory. He stopped chasing perfection and started pursuing purpose. The 2022 season became more than a comeback. It was a rebirth. Without some of his star teammates, Mahomes carried a team many had written off. He led not with flash, but with wisdom, with patience, humility, and an understanding that greatness isn't always loud. He learned to lead through the grind, not just the glory. Week after week, the spark returned. Not the wild, reckless magic of youth, but a steady fire born from growth. And when the Chiefs made it back to the Super Bowl, Mahomes wasn't the same player who first lifted the Lombardi trophy. He was calmer, sharper, wiser. He played through pain, limping on a bad ankle, yet refused to yield. When the confetti fell once more, it wasn't just victory. It was vindication. He had been doubted, dissected, and tested. And still, he rose. Mahomes looked into the cameras and simply said, "I don't play for stats or stories. I play for the people who believed when it got hard." That was the moment the boy from Texas truly became a leader. Not just of a team, but of an era, because redemption isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. By the time Patrick Mahomes lifted his second Super Bowl trophy, he had already transcended the game. He was no longer just the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the heartbeat of a new generation. Mahomes changed the way football looked, felt, and sounded. His no-look passes, impossible angles, and fearlessness became more than highlights. They became art. Kids on playgrounds across America copied his sidearm throws, whispered his name during backyard scrimmages, and dreamed of doing the impossible just like him. But his influence extended beyond the field. Mahomes represented something bigger, the evolution of the modern athlete. A black quarterback leading with grace, intelligence, and authenticity in a league that once doubted players like him. He carried that weight not as a burden, but as a mission, to open doors wider for those who would follow. Teammates called him humble. Rivals called him dangerous. Fans called him magic. And through it all, he remained grounded, crediting coaches, teammates, and his family before ever taking credit himself. Off the field, he became an ambassador for unity, using his platform to uplift communities, support youth education, and push for social progress. Mahomes didn't just redefine how football was played. He redefined what greatness looked like, not in numbers but in character. And for millions who watched him rise, stumble, and rise again, he became more than a player. He became a symbol of belief. For all his records and rings, Patrick Mahomes often says that his greatest victory isn't on the field. It's at home. Away from the cameras and chaos, he's simply a husband, a father, and a man learning to balance legacy with life. With Brittany, his high school sweetheart turned wife, Mahomes found grounding. She was there before the fame, before the trophies, before the world called his name. Together they built a family rooted not in luxury, but in loyalty. A reminder that love, not spotlight, is what keeps the soul steady. Fatherhood changed him. When he looks into the eyes of his children, he sees the same fire that once burned in his own. But now, it's matched by purpose. Every throw, every game, every decision carries a new weight. Not just for the fans, but for the little ones who will one day learn what his name truly means. Mahomes also turned his success outward. Through his foundation, 15 and the Mahomies, he funds youth programs, health initiatives, and scholarships, using his platform to lift those who might never make it to a stadium, but still dream big. He's learned that greatness isn't measured by how loud the cheers get, but by how deeply you give back once the noise fades. In the quiet moments, he often reflects on how far that kid from Tyler, Texas has come, and realizes that sometimes the truest form of victory is peace. Under the dazzling lights, with millions watching and confetti falling once again, Patrick Mahomes stands, not as the boy who dreamed, but as the man who became the dream. His journey was never about perfection. It was about persistence, about failing, learning, rising, and doing it all with heart. He showed the world that greatness isn't born in the spotlight, but in the shadows where no one's watching. It's forged in the quiet hours, the lonely workouts, the moments of doubt when giving up seems easier. From a dusty Texas field to the grandest stage in sports, Mahomes proved that faith and fire can coexist, that humility and heroism can share the same heartbeat. He didn't just win games, He inspired a generation to believe that they could. 2. And as the roar of the crowd fades into the night, one truth remains. Patrick Mahomes didn't change football by being perfect. He changed it by being fearlessly human. Because legends aren't remembered for never falling. They're remembered for always getting back up.